Time to do this Harlot. After playing this for a while, I did find the fault is physically in this foot switch, and it would become intermittent and I could move it back and forth and make the contacts work. So this is the inside, and it's terminal strip done, hand wired, all that fun stuff. I'm not convinced of the utility of a 12AX7 being powered off a 9-volt power supply, even though there is this voltage multiplier here. I've not measured what the actual voltage it's running at is, but it's kind of a marketing tube. I bet you could use a MOSFET instead of that and get much the same sound, but the pedal does sound good. It's not noisy, so be it. Here's the issue. The wiring on this switch is not complicated, but it's much easier to do once than to undo and redo some of these connections, because there's not a lot of slack in the wire. So I'm going to have to be very, very careful as I go. What's happening is we've got the LED negative here and ground here. So when the switch is in this position, the pedal is on, this LED goes to ground, it lights up. The input right here goes to the input of the circuit through this resistor when it's on, and the output of the circuit goes here, which goes to the goes here, which goes to here, which is the output jack. So when it's on, that's how it works. When it's off, the LED is off, and the wiper of the gain pot is grounded, and this input goes straight to the output through this blue wire, which is looping around, and the input of the circuit is grounded out. So that's a good implementation. They're grounding the input of the circuit, and they're grounding the gain part of the circuit right at the wiper of the gain pot. So if there's any bleed at all, it won't bleed into the bypass signal. So they've executed it very well. It's just one of those things that's really easy to do once. But if I undo it and redo it again, we might have issues with wire length. So I'm going to take these cable ties off to buy myself a little bit of slack. And I'm going to do this off camera because it's just too hard to work at this scale and show as I go. But here's a close-up view of the before. Let's see how my after matches it. All the wires disconnected. That was the trickiest bit. And no heat shrink or insulation melted, no strands, all frayed out. Time to replace the switch. I think that looks pretty good. If it weren't for this one being blue and this one kind of being teal, I don't think anyone would ever know. And I don't think that the owner of this company or whoever built this pedal would see any real differences between their work and mine. And this is not a fault. The failed switch is not a failing of Kingsley. All foot switches are rated for however many mechanical clicks. So there's one. I guess this is the new switch. 1, 2, 3. This one's definitely got, the new one's definitely got a little more resistance than the old one. But I usually see like 10,000 clicks rating on a switch. That's what they aim for, but anything that's mechanical can fail. So a pot will eventually fail, a switch will eventually fail, and anyone who makes a pedal or an amp, if they do their due diligence, and whoever built this did a good job. They've got good quality 16mm pots that are hand wired, they're tight to the chassis, they've got these good Neutrik or Cliff jacks. Everything in here was done really, really well, very intelligent layout, combining PCB where it makes sense, because this would be much larger if this were done point to point, like the terminal strip stuff, tag board stuff. This is a really well-made pedal. I think it sounds really good. Definitely a rock and roll raw kind of thing, which I personally like very much. The attention to detail on all the wiring is great. For some reason, the little white insulator like this that was on this resistor just disappeared into the ether while I was doing this. So I did use a bit of black heat shrink just to keep it from touching these other terminals. That's the only thing which looks non-stock. You know, so this is a very good review of a well-built, seemingly well-designed pedal. I wish the mode switch were a little more apparent what it's doing. It's fairly subtle, but you know, it does make a difference. The low-end three-position switch, I think, is a little more flexible in terms of giving real differences. But that's based on the amps that I've plugged this into. Maybe this mode switch is more apparent in a brighter amp than that Bogner. And what was the other one I tried it with? Oh, I plugged it into the VHT Classic 18 before I went home. Anyway, good pedal, seemingly a good company, well built, and has 2 good switches. Who could ask for anything more? Got to add a little bit more on, just using the phone camera mic, to be fair to Kingsley, because if I had one of my pieces of gear reviewed, I'd want it to be a very fair review as well. And in the previous video on this, one where you hear it going into the Bogner, where I was trying to see if the pedal would fail, there was a lot of switching noise, which I was concerned might be the way that the pedal was wired. And as you can see earlier in this video, the wiring of the switch is done correctly, and that is grounding out things that need to be grounded out and all that fun stuff. It's not the basic bad implementation of a true bypass most people do. And I just want to report back that with the new switch, that popping is gone. I mean, there's the acoustic sound of the switch, but there's no pop or click coming through the amp the way there was before. So if you see the previous video, that popping and switching was the faulty switch, not a circuit flaw.